Everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner, and I have a very special guest in the corner. And this is your first time actually being in the corner because the first time we met you was back at Anime Expo 2009. Would you like to unveil your identity to the masses?
Um, I'm a voice actor.
Do you
How's
have a
that? No.
name?
Okay. This is this is Tony Oliver. How you doing, guys?
And now it's been quite a while since we've actually gotten to talk to you. And when we did, you were one of our very first video interviews. Actually, one of our very first interviews at all. I think you were maybe
I
our third.
I didn't know that. I feel honored now.
Yes, and now we have about 350 under our belt. So hopefully this is a better time.
Oh, it was great.
So now in the past 2 years, I just want to get down to the nitty-gritty. In the past 2 years, what are the projects that you've been working on?
Quite a. It's been an interesting few years because as anime has changed and the different kinds of projects have changed, so as the stuff I've worked has changed. I mostly direct these days, as I have for the last few years, but I've worked on everything from Eureka 7 and the Eureka 7 movie to Gurren Lagann. I directed and voiced on that. I've done a lot of video games, including a lot of Japanese RPG games. And this last year, I was a director of K-On! When that came out, and also Squid Girl, as well as, like I said, a number of video games. It's interesting. Most of the work that I've been doing has been moving more and more into the video game realm. And then I just recently done a little bit of work on an original American animation called Secret Millionaires Club, which is on the Hub Network. And I don't think my episodes aired yet, but that was kind of fun. I actually had a scene with Shaquille O'Neal,
Oh,
although
wow.
he wasn't there. He'd already recorded, so I was kind of all by myself in the booth. But I knew that when it all got done, my voice would be talking to Shaquille O'Neal. So that's kind of fun.
Well, that's better than nothing.
Yes.
And now, in terms of directing, one of the most interesting things is we've seen you direct actually a lot of projects for Bang Zoom, correct?
Yeah, they've been very nice to me. We have a great relationship, and they've kept me very busy, and so 99.9% of the directing I do for the last few years has been through Bang Zoom, and it's been a great association.
And you actually do really nice workshops, not only for them, outside of conventions, but at conventions as well, that the fans can get a sneak peek of, correct?
Yeah, that's true. It's called Adventures in Voice Acting. We do them all over the country. It's actually the real workshops are actually full day long. It's boot camp for voice actors. I have a beginning, intermediate, and advanced. In fact, I just finished a whole weekend of workshops here in Los Angeles, and they're really designed for people who are interested in getting involved in this as a profession. The beginning workshop is really basic. This is acting, this is a microphone, that sort of thing. The intermediate workshop kind of gets more into character creation and different kinds of recording. And in the advanced, we get into a more of a lab situation where we're talking about game recording, which is a little bit more intense, and auditioning because that's what you have to do. And we do them all over the country. The ones I do at the conventions, and every time I appear at a convention, I do one. It's really kind of got a little kind of condensed little taste of it, a little sampler of what these kind of workshops are like, and I do try to give out some real information and real advice to people, and people get a chance to come up and try in front. It's a whole lot of fun. Our
N-
next workshops, by the way, are going to be in Dallas, Texas. So that's we're just announcing that like today.
Oh, very nice.
so uh, so they're going to be in Dallas in February 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th rather. And we'll be in Baltimore soon. We're still trying to get a studio, and in New York at the end of March. So
Now, you said boot camp, and I was going to ask next, well, isn't there a lot of screaming? Do you make them go through the mud? And then I was thinking to myself, well, actually, in video games, there is a lot of screaming. There's a ton of screaming.
yeah, there is. I've had some really interesting voice sessions where I've gone in feeling very good and gone out barely able to speak. So yeah, there's plenty of screaming, especially in the war games and the samurai fighting games, of which I've done many. But no screaming at our workshops. It's all talking and acting and having fun, and it's very anime based. Partly because Bang Zoom comes out of the anime world, and that's where most of the interest that we had lie. But also anime voice acting and dubbing. The skills for that kind of translate really well into video games, and it's also a little bit more difficult. So if you can master dubbing of anime and really master the dubbing process and how to act in that circumstance, all the rest of it is a lot easier technically. Creatively, it's all about the same, but technically, it's a lot easier to do non-anime stuff. So that's why I teach it that way. Teach you the hard stuff first, and everything else seems easy after that.
Well, now, have you ever actually lost your voice completely from a video game?
Yes, actually, once, yeah, the very first fighting game I ever did, my very first session on Dynasty Warriors. Um, I really wasn't sure what I was getting into, and I went in, and my voice was really clean and clear. And when I came out, I just didn't, I just hadn't, I didn't do it quite right. There's a way to place your voice so that you don't hurt yourself too badly when you're doing that sort of thing. And by the time I left, I had literally no voice at all. I was just barely a whisper. And the problem is that I'm a singer, and that evening I had a gig singing.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I have a singing partner that I worked with at the time, and I kind of when I got there, I said, okay, I'm gonna just play the piano, and you're gonna do most of the singing tonight because I have no voice left at all. And so since I've learned how to fix that, but occasionally it gets pretty nasty, and it's almost always on Dynasty Warriors. It's kind of funny. Those are the sessions that really kill my voice. It's just
Now, our live chat is actually asking, have you had any problems with Blaze Blue at all?
No, Blaze Blue is interesting because I mean it's a little rough on the throat, but his voice is so round and big and bombastic that it really I have to place it in a place where it doesn't really hurt my throat too much. His is more I don't know, Bang is more about the attitude than the voice and the screaming. So it's not as hard as it sounds.
Now, I remember that game immensely, especially the first one, because we actually talked to you the day I think it came out back
Yeah,
in 2009. So we didn't really get a chance to talk about Bang because we really didn't know about him, which was the important thing there. But I played that game, I think, every day for about a year because I worked at a game store in the area. And all the teenagers would come in and challenge me because I was always lychee. And there was one Bang Shishigami, and every time he had to do like his Super Saiyan form where
yes,
he has his own theme song playing.
yeah.
I,
I love that. I love that I was the only character in the game that had his own theme song. I thought that was cool.
and he's a very, I would think he'd be just a very fun character because he's so oblivious to everything.
Yeah, yeah, he's not a bright guy. He's all into chivalry and stuff. And but I always loved the fact that that first of all, when I did the game, I really didn't know. They didn't tell us much about it. I just kind of walked into the studio. I was really busy directing something else, and they cast me in it. And I literally had to walk out of my studio, down the hall two doors, and into the next studio to do it. So I had no idea what this guy was about, or what the character was like, or what his purpose in the game was. And it was as we were going through it that I started to kind of get the sense that this guy's kind of really wild and bombastic and really full of himself. So I always made the point that every time he said his own name, I would kind of puff up my chest and kind of really make a big deal about it. And that's kind of became the signature of the character. And I love the fact that he's so into himself, and yet he becomes a complete. He just turns completely to soup when he's talking about Miss Lychee. So I thought that was really funny. It's great. It's so well written, and it was so funny that we were laughing a lot in the studio when we were doing it.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show that video games has become more of a majority of your work lately, and do you think that's because the industry for video games has just grown so big?
Well, yeah, partly, yes. Actually, the answer to those questions is yes. And there's more to it than that. But the video game industry was the only part of the entertainment industry that continued to grow when the big recession hit. And so obviously most of the studios, and Bang Zoom being a very good studio, went after that kind of work because that's what was available. But also the popularity of those games has continued to increase. And even as the American-made games have continued to increase, the Japanese RPGs, which I do mostly, not exclusively, but I do mostly, those game popularities have increased a lot. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that the amount of anime that's available coming out of Japan that's in English form has been diminishing for the last few years. And also because those games provide a lot of story, where a lot of the more American-oriented games tend to be, shoot 'em up, and you just have a few call outs here and there, and everything's kind of disconnected. The RPG games provide so much story and so much other stuff that I think it's created a real loyalty, and so much loyalty that these games have, they have series of games which are all interconnected. Another thing is, I also think that the Japanese RPG games really appeal to women. The last three that I just directed all had females as the lead hero, and you combine those two, and that opens up quite a market. But I think that's probably why it's been mostly that way. And the shift for Japanese kind of product coming out has been kind of shifting towards the video game industry anyway. Witness that the Namco Bandai is putting out a lot more video games, while Bandai DVDs is actually going away. So it's just kind of a shift in the marketplace, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to kind of ride that shift and take advantage of it.
Well, I think it's very amazing that you mentioned how women actually prefer the RPGs because I will only get into a video game as much as I can like some shooters out there. I will only get into a video game if it has a nice story or if it has characters I can relate to. Like
Right.
things that are bloody, such as God is a God of War. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I can't care about the main character. All he wants to do is kill things. I can't
Yeah.
relate to that. But if you go to a role-playing game and it's about a hero that wants to save the world and fall in love with the girl and so on and so forth, that thing I can enjoy because in the beginning they start sort of young and they grow throughout the entire journey or the entire 80 hours.
Well, I think that's been the story in terms of action entertainment of any kind. I mean, even since I got into the business, that if you wanted to reach women with a movie, a television show, even if it was fully action oriented, you needed to provide a story. You needed to provide characters that were relatable and that people could get into, and not only women, but also a lot of men. But in terms of, you really wanted to focus women, that's, I think, one of the reasons why Power Rangers was so successful among little girls. When we were, because I was involved in Power Rangers.
Mhm.
Once we were not only number one in boys back then, but we also were the number one show for girls. And a lot of it had to do because, even though it was action and shoot 'em up and samurais and karate and all of that stuff, that we had stories, and we had female characters that were strong yet feminine. They were equal in stature to the story and to each other, and yet they stayed girls, and still had some sort of more complexity than some of the boys did. And I think that's true of any kind of entertainment medium: movies, films, television, whatever. Hopefully, and one of the things that I've been seeing in the video game world is that those Japanese RPG games and the popularity of them has been influencing the American games a little bit more. So you're seeing a little bit more and more stories showing up in even the traditionally American style, not too deep and all action video games. So hopefully that will continue as video games become more and more of a mainstream entertainment.
Well, to mention some shooters out there that I really like that are from a Western developer, Uncharted is one. It's very popular, and the characters are likable because not only are the female, side characters interesting, but the main character is very comedic, and you don't necessarily get that from Call of Duty.
No, not at all. No, and that's another thing that I'm starting to see a lot more comedies. I mean, and I think that's also being influenced by the Japanese RPGs. Last year, I did a series of games, including Prinny 2, which came out of the Disgaea series, and they were there's pure comedy. They're hysterical, and it's you can't do comedy without story. So as long as story's starting to show up, I think you're going to see a lot more stuff that's fun as well as action packed.
Well, there are some things that I think Western developers are still held back from. I'm obviously geeking out on you. I'm sorry, I don't know how much video games you play or how much you keep up with it. But for Mass Effect, for example,
Hmm.
in the second game, if you're the female character and you try and get in a relationship with one of the characters at the end, the dialogue is written so horrible. It is like porno saxophone dialogue as they hit on each other, and I just cringe as I played it. I just could not get past it.
Well, it went, it hasn't, it wasn't but a few years ago that the game developers here in this country were still using the code writers and the people that work in the accounting office to voice their characters. And I was actually involved in a show, in a game, Delta Force Black Hawk Down. I did voices on that. And we were the first game that that particular company had hired professional actors to do it. And the president of the company came in while I was in session at one point, and he was shaking his head, going, "Wow, this sounds so different." And my attitude at that point was, well, yeah, you don't want to ask an actor to write code. You should, you should, you shouldn't have the code writers act. And the same thing is going on with the writing. I'm noticing this on a couple of shows that I direct. Some of the, I mean, a couple of the games that I've directed. The gaming companies have been slow to bring professional writers on board. They have great storytellers and people have nice stories, but it takes a little skill or at least some experience to write good dialogue. And but you're seeing, I'm starting to see that change as well. There's a game that I direct. I direct a lot of League of Legends characters, and and they're starting to bring in better and better writers, and it's making a difference. So hopefully in the next few years you're going to see that improve. But yeah, I've seen my share of like, really, you want the actor to actually say this? Ooh, okay.
Well, I can't remember what the line is from Mass Effect 2 exactly, but it was something like, how much I like to pop off that last heat sink. And then he said, "Oh wait, that's not what I meant." And I was just like, "Why no one's actually gonna say that. Why?"
It's just a game.
That's true. That's true. I just get caught on details like that. But I will
Yeah.
say, in the video game industry, sometimes you actually see, and you don't see it as much, thank God, but you saw, the programmers put the game together and then they bring on the writer at the last minute and they're like, make sense of this.
Yeah, yeah, true. But you'd be surprised how much entertainment is made that way. I'm sure you've seen a few movies where you're just kind of shaking your head, wondering how, what were they thinking? And that's a lot has to do with management, who's in charge, whether they understand that more preparation is better for the product. Yeah, there's an awful lot of people out there, and this has been my experience in working in television and film, but especially television, where they don't want to spend any money preparing and getting things in shape before they go out and shoot, and then they go back and it's the famous line, "Let's go fix it in post production." Um, and I think as video games become more mainstream, that you're going to see more preparation. My philosophy is always that if you spend a few dollars ahead of time, making sure your script is in good shape, making sure your story works and all that stuff, it's going to save you. If you spend $10 here, it's going to save you $100 at the back end trying to make sense of it after the fact. Um, and some are good at it, some are bad, but we're still in a learning curve. This kind of entertainment, as sophisticated as it looks and it is still kind of in its infancy in terms of popularity. So it'll get better, just like movies got better, just like television got better.
I mean, video games still have the big debate, is this art, is this not? Can we show nudity, can we not? So naturally, we have to wait a few more years until video games kind of grow up.
Well, sure, and you're going to end up some that show nudity and some that don't, and some is for kids and some is not. And just like every other entertainment medium, there's room for everybody as long as everybody agrees what each standard for each market is.
And I think with that, we're going to take a short break here on 91.8 The Fan, but don't go anywhere because we're not, so keep it tuned to your favorite station where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.
Wow, this is my kind of job. Can't beat that. They're all sleeping.
Sleeping? What are you talking about, Serena?
See for yourself.
It's the Negaverse! Watch out! Behind you!
Tired of listening to radio stations that are run by the Negaverse? Don't fret, 91.8 The Fan guarantees that we're 100% Negaverse free. With our magical girl seal of approval, we promise to ward off demons, villains, tentacle monsters, energy zappers, spear heart smugglers, dream mirror removers, and starseed stealers.
Not a good aim, are ya?
Hey, everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. I still have my special guest here. You're still here, right?
I'm here in the corner.
Wonderful. Yes, you're not in trouble, by the way.
Oh, good.
Oh, yes. I know it's a corner and you kind of get like flashbacks from when you were a little kid, but I swear to God, it's got a beanbag chair and Cheetos. You're all good.
But do I have to wear the dunce cap?
No, not at all. Just some
Okay, good.
just some headphones that way you can tune into the radio. And now, one thing that the listeners want to know is what events can they find you at in 2012?
Well, we're still working that out. I do know nothing's official, but I will probably be appearing at Puerto Rico Comic Con in San Juan in late May.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, and other than that, right now, the only thing I have booked for sure is that I'm always at Anime Expo in Los Angeles every year, and I usually do a panel at Comic Con in San Diego um, every year. And but we don't have anything. I don't have anything set in stone yet for the rest of the year. So just kind of stay tuned. And I usually announce it on my Facebook page when I'm going to be someplace, and on my website. But nothing's set in stone. I'm talking to a few conventions, and we'll see what happens.
I feel like a bad person because I've never gone to Comic-Con, so I feel like a bad fan.
Well, it's insane. I mean, it's so much more than anime. Anime is such a little tiny part of it. It's pretty insane, and Hollywood has pretty much taken it over. But it's 100,000 people all in one convention center, and it's quite the thing to behold. It's a lot of craziness. If you're going to go, you really need to spend a few days there because just to get to my panel, people have to wait a couple hours. And I'm just a little guy I'm just a voice actor with a couple of guests. And if you want to see some of the bigger stars, and they're all there, you're going to wait good 2-3 hours just to get in.
Well, I think the biggest show I've gone to is the Consumer Electronics Show, which is going on now in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in Las Vegas, so it's just drive a little bit and oh, I'm here. Hi. Uh,
Always wanted to go to that show.
it's very interesting. I don't think a lot of people expect it to be so focused on some of the things it is because when our geekdom, thinks about electronics, we think video games. But video games is very muted at the Consumer Electronics Show. It's more along the lines of tablets and styluses and backpacks and things like that.
Yeah, the gadget group.
Exactly. But it's still really entertaining, and I cannot believe they're spread across so many casinos because it's the Las Vegas Convention Center, the Venetian, the Riviera, and then another casino that I just can't remember. I'm blanking out
Really?
on.
No, I didn't
Yes.
know that. Didn't know that.
Well, luckily, the Las Vegas Convention Center has a tram that goes to all those places, so you don't have to walk anywhere.
Ah, okay.
Yes, so it's
I'll have to get out there.
well, if you ever get the chance, I mean, I believe you're in California.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so it's not too far.
No, it's just a 30-minute flight or a 5-hour drive. So,
But hopefully we'll keep our eyes peeled to your Facebook and do you have a website? Do you do Twitter?
I've just started tweeting of late. Yes, it's Tony Oliver VA is the name, and I've just started. In fact, I tweeted about being on here today, so that was kind of fun. And I have a page at Facebook, which is Tony Oliver Voice Actor, so anybody can go there. And I have a website, which is TonyOliverEntertainment.com. Any of those places, you'll see that. The website's a little more for business, but the page is where I kind of do most of my announcing and kvetching, if you'll forgive the term.
Well, in terms of what we talked about what you've been doing since 2009. Do you have any projects that you want to pimp out or that you're working on that you can talk about you'd like the listeners to know about?
Only wish that I could talk about them. Yeah, I'm mostly really right now focusing on my workshops and the fact that we've just launched a YouTube thing with a lot of little tidbits of information and bits of the Adventures in Voice Acting channel with bits of information and advice, which will be unrolling over the next few months. My workshops with Adventures in Voice Acting. We're going to start a series of webinars here very soon that people can sign on to, and I'm sort of focused on that right now. The projects that I'm working right now I'm actually in the middle of adapting, and we'll start directing a dub of a French animated feature. Yeah, that's been kind of interesting. In fact, that's what I was working on right before we got on the phone here, or on the air rather. And yeah, but I can't, all these non-disclosure agreements, I can't say what they are exactly. So I can tell you. Hold on, let me look. See, I can tell you that I've got a game that's going to release here just a few weeks called Atelier Meruru, which is a lot of fun. And Shinobito 2: Revenge of the Zen is just about to come out, and so is Hyperdimensional Neptunium Mark II. So I've got all of those are coming out here just over the next few weeks. Um, and then the following, I think they're going to follow up with the final, and then Squid Girl. In terms of anime, Squid Girl should be the final episodes of Squid Girl first season should be coming out too. That was a really interesting project in that I just thought it was just silliness, and it really is quite funny in a clever way, and a little outrageous in places, and not what I expected. That's coming out from Media Blasters. I'm hoping that we get to do season two.
I
So
heard it had a ton of puns, actually.
yeah, and they gave me a lot of leeway, so I added even more.
Wonderful.
Well, a lot of people, I was reading some of the fan comments on it before we started, and they were all concerned that we were going to kind of gentrify the whole thing and take a lot of the puns out, and I thought that's what made the whole thing much better. So I added, I like the fact that she's coming up from the sea to invade mankind, and we added puns like "it's all in your imagination" and "holy carp" and things like that. So yeah, we just thought it was, and it's very funny and really outrageous, and not for little kids, by the way. Just so anybody out there, they see it, it looks like Squid Girl. Oh, good for my 4-year-old. It's not for 4-year-olds, trust me. Okay. Um, and then I think K-On! Is just wrapping up its releases as well. So and I'm a little sad because with what's going on with Bandai right now. I don't think we're going to get to do season 2 of K-On!, and that's just too bad. That's become my guilty pleasure show. I really enjoy it.
And
And
there's also the movie too that I heard is really doing very well in Japan.
yeah, I'm sure someone will pick that up. I'm hoping once all the dust settles that either Bandai will license it to someone here, and to someone here that will be invite us to come back and play the original cast and director. But I'm sure that movie's done well enough that someone will pick it up and do it. Hopefully they'll use the same cast. But it very often happens when licenses get split up, and stuff that was done here is now picked up by Funimation or ADV Films in Texas. They'll recast and do it with a different group of people. It'll still be just as good, but when you get attached to it, like I fall in love with that show, that it'd be sad if I don't get to play.
Well, I think that's also a mentality with anime fans. If they hear it in one language or with a certain cast, they can't hear it in another one. It's just foreign and strange to them.
Well, it could be. I don't know. I mean, it happened with Lupin. With Lupin the Third, I did all the red jacketed Lupins for the TV series that was on Cartoon Network, and Sonny Strait did all the films, except for the first one, which Bob Bergen did. And the fans seem to accept both casts. And they do a fine job at Funimation with the films, and we just each have a slightly different take on the character, but it still works. So, I think people will, if they really like the story, what's most important in all of this stuff is the story and the animation. And I think if fans like the story and the animation, they'll forgive a little change in the voiceovers.
It's funny you mentioned that because just before the interview, when I was talking to Chris about your credits, I said I can't listen to the other Lupins without feeling it's weird. I know their performances are great, and I'm not going to discredit them, but when I hear Lupin, I hear your voice.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was on television.
Mhm.
So more people heard it, than they might hear a Lupin DVD release. But thank you. I appreciate that. I take that as a lovely compliment.
Oh, wonderful. And now we're going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
We have a tradition here on 91.8 The Fan, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to accept.
Okay.
He's like, I'm not so sure, but basically, we were wondering if you would do a radio bump for us.
Sure, not a problem.
Awesome. The only trick is that we do it live on air, so if you do a mess up, everybody gets to hear
Oh, joy.
it. Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to say, hello, my name is, I do this. You can say whatever you want there, characters, that you're an actor, director, producer, whatever you want. That is your creative freedom. And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
So you're tuned into, it's into, not onto. Okay.
Yes. Into 91.8, the fan. The point is important for some reason. And it's okay, you're not the first one who wrote it down.
Okay. All right. So, okay, not a problem.
Then whenever you're ready, we can do a take one.
Okay. All right, here's take one. Hi, I'm Tony Oliver. I'm a voice actor, producer, voice director. I've done stuff like Eureka 7, Robotech, Squid Girl, K-On!, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And you're tuned into 91.8, The Fan.
See, that was easy. No blooper, no nothing. You didn't even mix up the numbers.
That's because I was like staring at it going, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up.
You'd be surprised. People still will say like 98.1 or something like that. So thank you very much for that. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Just thank you very much, and thanks for watching what we do and enjoying it and being such enthusiastic fans of the work that we all do, because we love to do it and we love the fact that you guys love to watch it. And so thanks for a nice career and for keeping the faith with all of us.
And thank you so much for this. This was a ton of fun.
All right, me too. I had a great time.
And for anybody out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. It'll be up on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and keep tuned to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want, nothing you don't.